when I have those moments where I could sit back and look at it, it really feels like a blessing. Like, I don't think I would do anything else. But it is still surreal. I still haven't slowed down to the point where I can like sit back and really think about it that way. I still have so much more that I want to do, and I still don't feel like I've gotten anywhere close to where I want to get to. I still have those doubts in a sense where I'm like, okay, this is cool, but we still got work to do.
Yeah. You're 10 years in on day one, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
From Hypebeast Radio, I'm Jeff Staple, and this is The Business of Hype, a show about creative entrepreneurs, brand builders, innovators, and the realities behind the dreams they've built. On this episode, we have Melody Ehsani, a jewelry, fashion, and footwear designer that for the past 10 years has managed to carve out her own way in this male-dominated streetwear scene.
I don't believe that we're just this. Like, we're not just physical. I definitely think that we have some kind of spirit that animates us. And I think that there's more to us than just this. And I think learning how to meditate and communicating with myself in that way sort of opened me up to that. Because it really, when I meditate, it feels like I'm going in and I'm asking myself questions, and then myself, like a different self, is answering.
Wow.
You know? If that makes sense.
Not to me, but it can to you. It's fine.
Yeah.
I get it, though.
Yeah, I just feel that way.
Melody, like a lot of young people that I talk to, didn't have any formal training in art or design. So I wanted to find out how she got her start.
So when I started, I was so like just enamored with making things and learning how to make things. Because even from a design or a creative standpoint, it's the way that my mind worked. Like, I had the ideas and I knew what they looked like, and that kind of stuff came very easy to me, but technically speaking, I had no skills.
Right.
So I didn't know how to draw. I didn't know any of that stuff. And to me, all that stuff is technical. It's not creative. Like, some people love sketching and drawing. Like, I don't like it. So I learned how to use Illustrator. And so I was so enamored and like occupied with how I was going to be able to put these ideas down and then communicate them to somebody that could make them for me.
Right.
That I wasn't really even thinking about the business aspect of it. So oftentimes it was like I'd make it and then I'd be like, I made it! And then I'd be like, oh shit, what do I do with all this stuff now?
Like, you were so impressed that you got it made.
Yes,
right.
Exactly. What I realized really quickly was that women really know how to spread word about something they love faster than the internet, like around the world. So if it's like, if this new lip gloss is like the lip gloss, like I tell my friends, she tells 10 friends, tomorrow everybody and their moms has this lip gloss.
Yeah.
Like, and so it was the same with me. Like, I started making shoes and I posted the shoes on MySpace at the time. And then it was like, it just kind of became a thing. So I had them in my kitchen and like my little studio apartment, and people would just come by my apartment and buy them. And I knew like every month I needed to sell like 20 pairs to make ends meet. And so that was my goal. I was like, if I sell these 20 pairs, then I'm good. And then I knew like, okay, if I sell 100 of them, that means I've broken even on my investment. And then if I sell anything I sell past this is like profit. Okay. So it was very like basic. Yeah. Like I only knew how to calculate and do the basic, and that's all I cared about, because I was so excited about doing it that I just needed to figure out how to keep doing it.
Gotcha. And shoes was the first thing? Was the first product that you had your name on?
Yes.
So making shoes is not making a t-shirt. How did you go about not being a shoemaker to making your own shoe?
So I took a class at Art Center in Pasadena about shoemaking, and I became obsessed with it. And growing up, I was like a sneaker head, for lack of a better word. So I really hate saying that. But it was my transition stage where I was just coming out of sneakers and I was really into being a girl. Like, I wanted to wear heels, but I wanted them to be comfortable and all that stuff. So I did an internship. My friend Mikhail at the time, he got me an internship with Creative Recreation. And they had just started their brand. It was like maybe 3 months old, and they had no employees. It was just the two partners. And so I would drive there every day, which was like an hour away, and Rich, the owner, taught me how to use Illustrator, and I would learn about like what I could just from being there. And then after I was done with that, I knew the city in which a lot of this stuff happened in China. Like there was this city, Guangzhou, that I had researched, and I was like, there's a bunch of factories there. I hit up a friend of mine. I was like, yo, do you know anybody in Guangzhou? She lived in Hong Kong. And she was like, actually, I do. I know this family that lives there. I was like, cool. Do you think they'll like host me if I came down?
Wait, you just wanted to pick up out of LA and move to Guangzhou?
Well, I didn't want to, but it was like, it was kind of like I was at rock bottom. You know, like I had dropped out of school. I had a small savings from working since I was like 15. And that savings wasn't going to last me very long. So it was like I either had to do something. There's nothing else for me to do. It seemed like the only choice. Like I have to do this now. I have to make this happen now. So I did. I moved to Guangzhou. And this family hosted me. They were incredible. They hosted me for like 5 months. And I went out there. They helped like translate, and they did everything. And I came back with my first collection.
That is seriously some balls. Excuse my French. Like, you don't speak Chinese, I assume.
No. No. I
Wow.
didn't know anything. But, you know, it was...
When you went there, did you already know the factory?
No.
So you went there just nothing. Like, I'm just going to
Nothing.
figure this out.
Yeah.
Wow. But you came back with a shoe collection.
Yeah. I came back with a 6-piece collection.
And was it sneaker driven or shoes driven?
No, it was heel.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were selling them out of your home?
Yeah.
When I started out, I had no investors and maxed out 8 different credit cards. By any means necessary is the name of this game. Melody explains what she needed to do to get by.
Okay, so and I love, you said this before a little bit, but you mentioned your baseline metric for avoiding starvation, right? Like 20 a month,
Yeah.
and I can live.
Yeah.
And you were hitting that?
Yeah.
What year is this?
This was 2008.
Okay. Is that what you credit as the start of the brand?
Yeah.
Like, how are you spreading the word to get people to come to your home to buy a shoe?
Word of mouth.
Okay.
That's what was incredible about it. It was like women. I was like, this is what we do. Like, we do this. We talk about stuff. Guys don't really, they don't have that same sort of network. You know, anybody that would try to talk to me about putting together a business plan, they're like, well, how much do you have for marketing? And I'm like, I don't have anything for marketing. I don't need marketing. I just need to like connect with my girls, talk about it, like show them what I'm doing, and then it'll do its own thing. And that's exactly what happened, and still happens, like to this day.
Give me an idea of what that initial production run was. What was that first order?
What do you mean?
Like how many pairs of...
Oh, it was a lot. It was, I think I convinced the factory to do 12 dozen of each style. So I had 144 pieces, and I had 6 styles. So it was almost 1,000 pairs, and they were all in my apartment.
I love it. You had 1,000 pairs of shoes in your apartment that you were moving individually one at a time to women.
Yes.
Did you open wholesale accounts? Like, did a store come and buy your stuff?
I tried to, but it was really hard. So yeah, because the thing is, because I was selling it out of my house, there'd be like no size 8s of this style left, you know, and it wasn't like I was going to not sell them to people to sell them to a store. So it wasn't really set up for that. So I couldn't really fulfill store orders.
Right.
In that way.
At this point, I want to go back to your family a little bit. Like, is your mom now proud of you for what you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. She totally had I did it. It's relative, right? Like, I still don't think that they really see me in the sense, but they're very proud of me. So for the first 4 years that I was doing it, you know, she would still bring me like job clippings and be like, she had gotten to the stage where she'd bring me like designer job postings, you know, and be like, look, so-and-so's hiring, because they just didn't understand how I would be able to do it.
Yeah.
by myself. And then after I bought my house, I think that was like a big turning point because they're like, wait, what? Like, what did you do? And I was like, yeah, I bought a house.
Okay, so let's go. How did that happen? Like, so you do this 1,000 pair run. Were you able to move all of that product?
Yeah, I moved it all. And then after I did that, I was like, well, what do I do now? Do I have to go back to China now and do this all over again? And how many times a year am I going to have to do this? And how, you know? Mm-hmm. So I got bored and I started making jewelry at home because there was such a big gap between everything.
Waiting for shoes to get made and stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And at the time I had just become friends with Saul Williams. He's a poet. And Saul was doing his first music project with Trent Reznor, which was a big deal. And so I was out with him one night and I had this dream about him and I told him the dream. And then he just like stared at me. He was like, I want you to design my wardrobe and all my stuff because he's like, your dream is exactly what I've been working on. Like, and so he showed me his vision board and it was literally like this whole thing that I had dreamed of. So he had created this character called Niggy Tardust. And so that was the first time I decided to like make all the stuff that I grew up not being able to afford into like affordable jewelry pieces. So I would make like 3-finger rings out of plexiglass and, you know, like oversized hoops. And I would like crystal bamboo earrings by hand and just all this stuff. And so I made it for his character. And then Erykah Badu is a good friend of his and saw his rings and wanted them. So she reached out to me and I was like, what? You want what? And then from there it just like catapulted. Like I met her in New York and then I had designed like maybe like 10 pieces just for her and I had brought them for her. And then the shoot that I brought them to, I had no idea where I was meeting her, where I was going, was the shoot, like, it was like the main press shoot that she was doing for her new album. And then it was like blah, blah, blah covers of like these 5 magazines and all this stuff. And she wore my stuff in each image. And it ended up being her album cover, where it's like the whole cover is her holding up my rings. And then she adopted the font that I had created and all this stuff for her packaging.
Wow.
So that was like...
Which album was that?
New America.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's just prominently rocking it.
Yeah. And she was really supportive. Like, I think she does that with artists that she really likes. Mm-hmm. She just sort of like looks out. She was really dope in that way. And then after that happened, everybody wanted a custom, like 3-finger ring. Some of the pieces that I made exclusively for her, I started to turn into like collection pieces because so many people were requesting them. And then...
Were you making one-offs for people at the time?
Yeah.
And how were you, like, you weren't making these in China, were you?
No.
So how were you making these
I was
jewelry?
making... So when I was at Art Center, I fell in love with the laser cutting machine. Mm-hmm. Like, I was like, this is amazing. Yeah. Like, what does this do?
Anything.
Right. And so the main thing that I wanted to make out of it was jewelry because there's so many things that I wanted but that I couldn't find in the market. And so I became fascinated with cutting and drawing something 2-dimensionally and then making it 3-dimensional. So like with the rings, it's essentially like 3 or 4 2-dimensional objects that you like glue or assemble together in a way so that it becomes a ring. Mm-hmm. And with earrings, it's the same thing. It's like, it just depends on how you cut them and then how you assemble them. And then it becomes this like 3D looking thing. Mm-hmm. And so the concept of that was feeding me creatively.
The laser cutting machine sort of informs the material too, right?
Yeah.
Were you using any like precious metals back then?
No.
But you could, because you couldn't put that in a machine.
No.
But like plexi, you could.
Yeah.
But that made it unique at the same time.
Totally.
That's cool.
And I started to like source really cool plexi. So I would find like mirrored gold, which looked like gold.
Yeah.
You know, but it didn't fade and it was cheap And then because it was affordable, it was so fun because I could do whatever I wanted and I could make as many mistakes as I wanted and it didn't matter.
Right.
You know, whereas if you're making like a ring out of gold, it's like you basically have this one
One
shot.
time, get it right.
Yeah.
So now you have, talk about the line now. So you're making customs for people.
Yeah.
You're turning some of the successful ones into your line, essentially, and you still have the shoes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is like the breadth of your collection, basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm doing all of this, and then I think I did that for a good 2 years, and then 2 years in, customs confiscated my entire shipment of shoes.
A whole shoe run.
A whole shoe run.
Every entrepreneur is going to face a moment of failure, a moment when you ask yourself if it's time to throw in the towel. The good entrepreneurs, they're able to climb out of that hole and persevere.
One collection would support me for a year. And so, and again, that's all I knew. Like, I didn't know the business of anything other than like, how do I survive and what does this mean? So they confiscated the entire shipment, and the way...
break that down to someone who doesn't quite understand what customs confiscated means, because that sounds like some cocaine shit.
It is some cocaine shit.
But what does that mean? Like, what is customs and why would they confiscate your stuff?
So because I was making stuff in China, there's like millions of packages that come here from China. And I believe that they have a quota where they have to go through them and make sure that everything's legit. And there's very harsh, like, criteria around what you can bring in, what you can't bring in, how you bring it in, how it's packaged. Just because it's also China, and I'm sure a lot of people are bringing in counterfeit goods and all kinds of different types of things. So they confiscated my stuff because they said that my factory didn't use authentic YKK zippers. So that was the thing. And
but you were using YKK branded zippers, but it might not have been real YKK.
Well, yeah, that's what they claimed. So I contacted my factory. I got like an authenticated letter from YKK saying that they were, and they customs wouldn't accept it. So I don't remember the exact details of it, but the way that it was sort of like a setup, because it was like I had to put a $15,000 bond down just to contest them like taking my stuff. And then after that, if I win, it's like one thing. And if I lose, like I have to pay all the legal fees for the customs department. It was just something that was like
whack judicial system.
It was
stuff.
so whack, and I couldn't afford it. And I thought that it was really unethical. Anyway, so it caused me a lot of stress. If I hadn't started making the jewelry, I would have had to stop doing what I was doing, because that's how much of a hit I took. So after that, I was like, fuck China. I'm never making anything in China again. And I don't want to deal with customs. Like, I'm not doing anything with customs again. I'm just going to make this stuff here.
Yeah. I mean, it must have been a harrowing experience.
Yeah.
You don't want to ship anything.
Anything. I was like,
You're like, laser cutter machine? Here I come. I'm just going to laser cut everything.
Everything. I'm like, can I laser cut these shoes? Which you can now.
Yeah, which you can now. Yeah, you're 20 years ahead of your time.
So, yeah, I just focused on the jewelry. I was like, okay, now that this has happened, I really have to grow the jewelry. So then I started making more and more. I maybe had like a 30-piece jewelry collection, which for me was a lot. And then it did really well. It just started growing and growing and growing. And then a year later, by the grace of God, Reebok contacted me and was like, there was somebody there on their team that was like a fan of my jewelry and wanted me to do a shoe for them.
Was that based off of your shoes or your jewelry?
Jewelry.
Okay, so they weren't a fan of your
They didn't know
heels.
about this. Yeah, they didn't even know about them.
But this goes back to your sneakerhead basketball roots.
Yeah. So it was kind of incredible. I mean, I couldn't have set it up in a better way.
What year was this when Reebok hit you up?
This was 2012. Okay. Yeah.
A lot of young people ask me, because I work in shoes a lot too, how does a company like Reebok just hit you up? Like,
Yeah.
Was it an email? A phone
Yeah, I got an email
Uh-huh.
and then they were like, can we set up a call? And I was like, sure. But it happened with like when Erica Badu called me, I didn't think it was really her.
call? Yeah.
So I was like, who?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, right.
Her people called or she
No,
called?
she called. And I was like, yeah, that's cool, bye. And then
You're like, wait, sing on and on so I know it's really you.
That would have been dope. I actually should have done that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, like, there's these moments, right, where, like, Reebok emailed you. There's that moment. Erica calls you. But people don't realize what's under that. Like, how did that happen? And I think a lot of people think, like, oh, you're just lucky and they just called you. But, like, there's a wealth of pushing that occurred in order for that to happen. Like, it was maybe you working with Saul and your dedication to his vision that got Erica, right? And it was your pushing of the jewelry that made a fan at Reebok that finally they hit you up.
Yeah.
But you didn't do it with the intention of that happening.
No.
Right. Like you weren't trying to get a shoe collab out of
No.
jewelry line.
I mean, even when Erica hit me up, when I was doing stuff for Saul, like I never imagined celebrities wearing my stuff. That was so far from my mind. I was trying to figure out how I could sell it to people.
Yeah.
But I never thought that like somebody famous would wear it because I'm making shit out of plastic.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like it's, and I always thought celebrities is like, oh, they're going to Tiffany's or, like whatever.
Yeah.
But then when that started happening, I was like, how the fuck? Like, so-and-so's on the red carpet wearing like a $10,000 outfit with my like $30 rings,
So dope, yeah. It's the high and the low.
And that's the highlight of their outfit. Like that's what people are talking about.
Right.
And it was just like that moment that was sort of like everybody around me was like, how did you do that? You're so lucky. And I'm like, it's not quite luck, like I worked really hard.
What percentage is hard work versus what percentage is luck?
I don't like the word luck because I think luck means that like it's a happenstance, whereas I really do believe that there's some kind of divine intervention. I think that when you really pursue something that's within your calling or it's part of like a divine blueprint that you have, I think that you receive support for that, by whatever you want to call it, the universe or whatever your paradigm is. But literally like my dreams started playing out, but it was so much better than I could have planned, so it was like, it's all the things that I knew I was and I knew I could do, but I had no clue how, and I didn't have the vision for it because I didn't have any reference point for it. Like nobody had ever shown me. I never had seen anybody else do it. Like I just didn't know what happens or how it happens. And so I just worked hard and then I did what I could. And then I think just by virtue of me doing the best that I can, then these other things started to open up. I think what I'm trying to say is that it's not a formula, like there's no prescription for it. Like when you just do things that and that naturally come to you and that you're good at, there's something else I think that steps in and helps.
Yeah. But was there a lot of struggle while you were doing that?
Yeah.
It's not like...
Absolutely.
It's not like Melody said... There's someone listening right now that says, like, Melody says, believe in yourself, do you, do what you love, and then the White House will call you, Erica Badu calls you, and Reebok calls you.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of...
Totally.
Just heartache, headache, right?
Absolutely. I remember actually this last year looking back and being like, where did the last 10 years of my life go?
10 years.
10 years.
Decade.
A decade of my life. I've been doing this.
Yeah.
And I've really dedicated myself to it. I'm not married. I'm not, and it's like...
Mom, I'm not married.
Right. And it's not that I don't want to be. I actually want partnership, but it's like I've been working so much, like I've really been working hard at it. So it does definitely take a lot of work, but more than anything for me, I think it's taken a lot of self-work and it's sort of what I've noticed is the difference between myself and other people that want to do things but that don't, is that we're so good at talking ourselves out of it, and we're so good at being scared and then not doing it.
Right,
you know?
self-doubt.
Exactly. And the thing is like, I'm just as scared, if not more, but I've pushed past those things. You know, like anytime I'm like fear for my life about anything, I just do it anyway. I think that's the only difference between saying all these inspirational things and making them happen versus making them not, is that you really have to conquer yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's tough as a creative because to me, like, let's say you're an accountant or you're a lawyer and you want to do the best you can justify it sort of numerically. You could be like, I'm a great accountant because I did this many bookings and I'm this good at my job of balancing taxes. But to say you're a good creative and a successful creative is very subjective.
Totally.
And no one's telling you like, yeah, what you just did for the last 5 years, check is all great. Like,
totally.
It's every single thing you create is like, this could be the worst thing ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no valid like right or wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And even something that you think is right could be received like really poorly. I often find in my stuff, the stuff that I'm most proud of performs the worst. And the stuff that I'm just like, whatever, it like kicks ass.
Same.
Why is that? Why does that happen?
I don't know. I always think, I'm like, are people behind? Like, because I think that's what it is. I think that, you know, part of your job is to forecast, and you probably pick up on trends intuitively or however we do, and you put them out and you're like, ta-da, like, look, I brought it to you. And people are like, what? We're still on that.
2 year ago
that
thing.
2 year ago thing, yeah.
Right. So the Reebok collaboration started as what, a shoe, or you were an ambassador first?
Yeah, it was like an influencer program.
Okay.
So they chose like a girl from each continent and they gave us all the same shoe, and we basically had to do whatever we wanted with the shoe. So I did the shoe, and the shoe did like freakishly well. So back then on my website, I didn't have like a counter because we were making all acrylic, like we were making all the jewelry in-house. So we had no inventory. It was like, we'd make a few of these things that we thought were popular, and then we'd like, if somebody placed an order, we'd just make it that same day. You know, it was kind of like that. So we got the Reeboks, and we had, I think Reebok had seeded me 50 pairs or something like that. So we put them up on the website on Friday night or whatever. It was like Friday at midnight. And then we came back to work on Monday, and we had sold like 3,000 pairs of shoes over the weekend.
Out of 50.
Out of 50. And we had no counter, so there was no way to stop it. So orders were like just continuing to come in. And so I was like, oh my God.
You just pissed off 2,950 people.
So I was like, what do we do? How do we do this? Like, where did these people come from? And so I called Reebok and I told them, I was like, do you guys have 3,000 pairs of shoes that I could buy off of you? And what can we do? And they're like, well, we have 2,000 pairs, but we could order them from, I don't know, wherever, and get the rest to you in a month. And I was like, cool. So I bought the 2,000 pairs off of them, and then I shipped it out, and then everybody else, I think we got like 5 cancellations or something. Everybody else waited a month and a half for their shoes.
Wow. What a great story.
Yeah.
And that led to more.
Yeah.
Okay.
So after that happened, I mean, I hate to talk shit, but you know how like companies are like, oh, that happened, so let's just like kill this thing now. Like, let's take it. Yeah. So they were like, we want to do the same shoe in like these colors now, and are you okay with a re-release? And I was like, no, it's not going to be special anymore. But they did it anyway, and the second run did really well as well.
Well, you eventually said yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I didn't really have a say. Like, they had, under my contract, they had rights to it.
Okay.
So
so in your contract, whatever you designed for them was the ownership of Reebok.
Was theirs. Yeah.
So they were asking you for permission, but technically didn't.
They didn't need it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But was your name on those shoes too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So they put it out. It was fine.
Yeah.
And then it did really well. And then I think it just sort of like, it was the perfect timing because all the people in the classics department that were making the decisions were all women, and they had been waiting for something like this to happen, it seemed, so that they could like do something for women. And especially with Reebok's brand heritage, like it's all about aerobics, and like that's really where they
killed it.
Yeah.
Back then, yeah.
So I think that they saw it as an opportunity, so they signed me to a deal. And then
A longer term deal than that.
yes,
To create more collections.
they signed me to a 3-year
Okay.
deal, which at the time, you know, I was like, great, like cool, I could do 2 collections a year for you guys and do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was great.
Did that help from a like financing of your brand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, in the sense of that, I learned, thankfully, from that first experience that I had, I learned that I needed to buy the shoes and sell them myself. So that was part of our contract, is that I had them set me up as a vendor in their account. So it was like I was getting their like little design fee on the side, you know, like that's what my deal was with them. But then I had access to purchasing the shoes, and I was able to drop them a week before anybody else. So that was like my deal with them, and then that's how I made money. And
Okay.
that really like helped me financially.
Did you have a lawyer at the time?
No.
So you know, I want to drill down a little bit into the art of the deal.
Yeah.
And, you know, the first the negotiation of the terms. And, you know, for people who don't really understand, there's first, before you sign a contract, there's just a discussion of like the bullet points of the deal, right? Like
Yeah.
who gets what, how much are they going to pay, stuff like that. And then it goes into like a contractual thing. In that negotiation process, that was just you and Reebok
Yeah.
hashing it out.
Yep.
Did you feel intimidated in talking about how to price yourself for a design fee? How much are you buying the shoes for? How early do you
Absolutely.
get them? You're just freestyling.
Well, yeah, I had no reference point.
Yeah.
Like, and I didn't know anybody at the time that had ever done anything like that outside of professional athletes.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't know what a design fee looks like. And so I was calling my friends and asking some of my friends that I think would know, but nobody really knew. So when they offered it to me, I was just like, okay, great. Like,
When they offered to you, were you like pleasantly surprised, unpleasantly disappointed? Were you like, that's about right?
yeah, again, at that time, it was like I was just so excited to do it that I would have done it for nothing, really, you
Right.
know?
For the exposure.
For the exposure,
Yeah.
for whatever. You know, I just would have done it just because I thought it was an incredible opportunity for me. But yeah, looking back, I really wish I had somebody helping me.
Yeah. But you learn as you go
I
along.
learned. Yeah, I learned a lot.
And how about the contract? You just read your own contract?
Yeah.
You didn't show a lawyer?
No.
What?
I mean, I got advice from a couple people I knew, but none of the lawyers that I knew. Fashion is really specific contractually.
Yeah.
So like I knew like an immigration lawyer. My best friend is a civil rights attorney. So they kind of understood things. So I got help, but no.
When I see young creatives start getting called upon by bigger corporations, you always hear about people getting caught in a bad deal. The truth is, a bad deal happens when someone misses out on the finer details.
It was pretty straightforward. I mean, there were certain things that I saw in there and I'd be like, I need you to take this out, and they would. And
Right.
it was fine.
And you
But-
had your law-ish degree.
Kind of,
Yeah, yeah.
I kind of understood what I was doing to
That's
some
cool.
extent. But what I didn't realize, which I wish I had earlier, was like, as I was doing all this stuff, I saw all these other designers, like Gosha Rubinski is a perfect example, where he had a shoe with Fila, Reebok, and Nike, like all in the same year, because however he had structured his contract, obviously he didn't have like a non-compete. Whereas when I signed with Reebok, like I was deadlocked in with them. So I couldn't explore any other opportunities, which
those 2
really
years.
pissed me off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you saw that and you just figured this must be something that this kind of makes sense. Like I should be exclusive to them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was really dedicated to them just because of how much access they were giving me, which is also another thing that I learned through the process is like, different brands have different things going on. Like if I were to go to Nike, I think they would probably be like, these are the 2 silhouettes that you could work on, and this is your color palette.
Yeah.
Whereas Reebok basically was like, here's our entire archive, and
carte blanche.
Here's our materials library.
Right.
Like, do you want us to source anything for you? And I was like, what? Okay. Can you do this? And they're like, yeah, we could do, like, I had a whole team there that like just did stuff for me, which was, that's what really made me excited about it. And that's why I sort of like made peace with it.
Right. Let's talk about your store. So what year did the store open in LA?
The store opened in 2012.
Okay. So it's been there for 5 years
Yeah.
now. 5 years ago, if I can recall now, 5 years ago, e-commerce was a thing. Amazon was a thing. The state of brick and mortar retail was probably already shaky at best.
Yeah.
Why did you decide I'm going to open a freestanding store in LA?
You know, it was like that voice in me that just kept pestering me about it, and I didn't understand it because I hate retail. Like, I grew up working in the mall. Like, I've worked in the mall my entire life, and I hate retail. I hate it so much. I hate being in a retail store. I just, like, don't like it. But there was something about it. There's something about the stuff that I made that I felt like needed interaction. And so it just kept coming to me where I was like, ugh, I think I have to look at this. So
how are people buying your stuff at this point?
Online. Just online.
So they couldn't go to your apartment anymore?
No.
Yeah. Those days were done?
They were done.
Okay. Did you have a showroom?
No.
So you had your home. Did you have an office?
I had an office.
Okay. So you had a home and an office, but people couldn't go there to just shop?
No.
Okay.
So yeah, I just feel like there needed to be some kind of interaction. So I knew a lot of the guys on Fairfax, like Nick from Diamond. Like, we all clubbed together when we were younger. And so I knew them, and I was with Frank Ocean's a good friend of mine, and I was with him, and he took me down to the Odd Future store. Like, he would everybody would hang out there all the time. And so he took me down there, and I remember being like, wow, like, Fairfax has really changed, but in a good way. And I was like, if I were to ever do something, I think I'd do it here, just because I liked the vibe around it, and I knew everybody there, and I was like, this feels right. So a week later, we went down there again, and I saw a for rent sign on one of the stores, and I was like, I wonder. And so I took down the number, and I called, and mind you, I didn't have credit at all. Like, I had put everything on a debit card because I didn't even, like, nobody had taught me about that even. You
didn't have a credit card? You had a debit card only?
I had debit cards. So I was putting everything on debit cards because I didn't want to spend more than I had. And I saw that as noble.
Like you didn't want debt.
Right. I was like, this is great. Like, I'm doing great, That
is very commendable, to be honest.
Yeah. But I didn't know that you needed credit for the stuff like this. So I remember talking to my accountant at the time, and he was like, yeah, nobody's going to rent you anything because you don't have credit. And I was like,
unless you pay like 5 years up front or something.
I was like, I can't do that. So I was like, well, whatever, I'll just try it anyway. And then he was like, yeah, just submit the application, and then if they come back to it, then we can negotiate and see like what terms or whatever they want. So I did. I submitted an application. They got back, and they're like, okay, you're approved. And I was like, what? I was like, they didn't run my credit. They couldn't have.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way they could have. And then the process of it was so it was like the most effortless process I've ever gone through in my life.
To get the keys for your place.
To get the keys to my place. And I was like, okay, I get it. Like, this is why the shit keeps coming to me, and I guess it's supposed to be, this is just supposed to be something that I do.
Yeah.
So now...
In case you don't, for the people who don't know, but you're on Fairfax.
Yeah.
Which is a very testosterone-driven boys club, right?
Yeah.
It's Diamond, Hundreds, Supreme, right? Like Huff, Odd Future.
Yeah.
And you're just, I'm going to open like a 4 female by female like retail store.
Yeah. That's what got me excited though.
Why not like Larchmont, La Brea, Melrose, where like the women shop?
I just didn't connect with them. I mean, it's not somewhere I would hang out. And I just felt like, I don't know, there's very few, I was born and raised in LA, and I feel like there's very few places that really like capture LA. You know, and I felt like Fairfax, in a sense, was still very untouched in that way. Yeah. You know, it wasn't like Hollywood, or it wasn't made to be anything it's not. It was still like, it was still very like true to itself. I mean, now it's changed tremendously in the last 5 years. But even now, still, like it still has that a certain quality about it. Yeah.
And so, have you felt the sort of hits and challenges that everyone talks about with retail?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, it's, I think the hardest part for me is having to, when you have a brand and then having to grow publicly, you know what I'm saying? Like
in front of everyone.
Exactly. Yeah. Like making mistakes, or like, and when I look at pictures in my store when I first opened, like it looked like an art gallery, like there's nothing in there. You know?
Yeah, little pieces of jewelry.
Right. Yeah. It was like little things here, like it's kind of embarrassing, you know? Whereas now I feel like, even now it's still not where it needs to be, but now I feel like I've collected more of like what a brand identity would look like in person and how to execute that. And challenging wise, there's so many things. I mean, like the toilet floods, and all of a sudden you have all this like product that's damaged
in toilet water,
right? And what do you do?
Right, these are things they don't teach you in college.
No.
Right,
it's not.
Well, what are the pros of it then?
I think for me the biggest pro has been I've really been able to, so when I was working out of an office, I was very isolated. And now that I have the store, I have an opportunity to really involve the community in doing different things that I really want to do. So an example is like Fairfax High School is down the street, and there's all these girls that are on Fairfax all the time, but can't really hang out at a lot of these guys' stores. So they come and hang out at our store, which is so great. Or they'll come in and like talk to the shop girls about like what's going on, and you know, it's just so sweet to have like to create that sort of community.
It's like a clubhouse.
Yeah. And then I get to host different things, like we have a speaker series every month, and you know, I have the privilege of establishing all these incredible relationships with cool people. And then I now have a place where I can be like, hey, can you come speak? And like talk about like kind of like what we're doing, but do that. And then like it was actually so dope. A couple weeks ago, I had Lena Waithe, who's the first Black woman. She's on Master of None, but she was the first Black woman to ever win an Emmy for comedy writing. And then my friend Melina, who directed the episode that she won the Emmy for, and Michael Ealy, who's an actor, and they talked about women of color in Hollywood.
All together at a talk.
Yeah, we had a panel at the store, and we received like 800 RSVPs, which is a lot for us. It was like unheard of.
Because your store can fit how many people?
100. And we had a line with like 200 people down the street. And the next day, everybody on Fairfax was like, yo, Mel, it's so dope. Like, what did you drop last night?
Knowledge.
Right. That's what I said.
That's dope.
So that was really cool. It was probably like the highlight of my year, where I was like, this is what I really want to do. Like, and that's what it was, mostly girls, like all girls. You never see girls line up for anything.
Yeah.
But when it's this kind of stuff, like I would line up for that. Like I would definitely stand in line for something like that.
And these are things that still can't happen on an Instagram post. Like,
right.
This has to happen in real life.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just so special. Like I really like creating, especially in the state of the world right now. Like people, including myself, feel so helpless oftentimes. They're like, what do I do? Where do I go? And I'm fortunate enough where I have a community that that like really supports me, but a lot of people don't. Like a lot of my friends don't have like-minded people that they could like go to all the time or that they can hang out with. And so it's so cool to create a space for like-minded people. And it's all based off fashion. Like who would have thought?
What Melody has done here for the community and the culture is absolutely amazing. There's no arguing that. But now I wanted to get into the actual state of her business and quantify where she's at.
I have sort of like 4 major categories that, to me, when I see a successful business, they're checking on all 4 of these categories. So I'm going to say them to you and you tell me like how you're doing in them. Okay. So to me, in a business like ours, the first major category is creativity. And to me, I put design and marketing even into that whole bucket because nowadays marketing is like a creative endeavor, really.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like you have that. That was the start of it. You have that in spades, right? The other 3 are, to me, that are really important. I'll reel them off first is sales. So it's great to be able to make stuff, but to me, selling them is like the next challenge, right?
Yeah.
It's not enough to just make it. So selling, production, the ability to scale the thing that you're making and deliver it on quality and on time and on budget. And then the 4th thing to me is sort of like what I just call logistics and back end, which is everything from the ability to like ship it on time, not have stuff get stuck in customs, make sure that they are paying for the goods, or if they want to return it, that it can be returned. Like just the moving of it is another issue.
Yeah.
So sales, production, and logistics, how do you fare in those categories?
How do you want me to answer that? Like in a percentage or?
0 to 10, 10 being best.
10 being best. So sales.
Or let's start with creativity.
Creativity isn't an issue for me. I feel like I always...
You're pouring out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of
let's call that an 11.
Creating time. Yeah. That's my favorite part. If I could just do that, I would be the happiest person on the planet.
Okay. So let's go through the other ones.
For sales, I think it's probably like a 6 or a 7. I think that I have like a solid customer base that is very supportive and that like buys our stuff, but trying to figure out how to scale that is the hard part. You know, it's like, how do I find more of these people in other places of the world?
And see how, if you can answer that question, it automatically now goes to the next question.
Yeah.
So let's say you found 1 million other people who want to buy your brand.
Yeah.
Now, are you ready for production?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So,
are you still laser cutting pieces out?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yep.
You haven't moved, you still haven't gone back to China in Guangdong yet, Guangzhou or whatever.
Well, I did expand to metals, so now we also do like I work with brass a lot, and we make molds, and then that kind of stuff is easy. But
locally in California?
Yeah.
Okay, so everything's in California.
Everything's in California.
Wow.
Yeah.
Made in the USA.
Made in the
awesome.
USA. But yeah, I don't know what I would do. Well, it depends on what it is. Like with the acrylic stuff, it's all handmade and it's all like it's all happening in-house. But it's not hard. Like I would have to hire some more people to assist, but I could do it. With the metals, it's easy. But with the apparel, like I just started doing apparel in the last couple of years, that's a little bit of a challenge. Because there's so much that goes into it, like sourcing the material. So it's like, yeah, we found this incredible material, but we only found like 300 yards, which could probably make like 200 pieces. Like what else?
Yeah.
So if we got an order for it, if we had more demand, like we wouldn't know what to do.
Is all the apparel made in America too?
Yeah.
What made you want to go into apparel?
I kind of got bored with accessories. I was like, if I make another earring, I'm going to shoot myself.
You just wanted to expand your repertoire, basically.
Yeah. And I mean, even now I'm like, I want to make furniture so bad. Like every chandelier I see, I'm just like, I want to make lighting.
That's dope.
So it's just about like wanting to flex creatively in different ways.
Yeah.
Like I don't want it to become a routine ever.
So rate production.
I would say a 5.
Okay. Because you're good at what you do, but God forbid you get like a 10,000 piece order, you're just sort of
I wouldn't know what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And
what people don't say, what the hardest part about production is timing. Because a lot of times I can get it done, but it'll take like 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
And then the opportunity
opportunity's gone.
Yeah. And then logistics, which goes right hand in hand in that, right? So if you get an order for 10,000 pieces and now you got to house 10,000 bolts of yardage or material.
Yeah.
Like, how is your logistics situation?
I would probably say it's like a 6.
Okay.
It's one step above because, well, it's interesting because with the Reeboks, it's kind of a prime example. So with the jewelry, we move like, it's like a steady thing. Like we sell it all year round and it's like a steady thing. But when we do the Reeboks, we're selling like 3,000 pairs overnight, usually, or like throughout the course of a weekend.
Yeah.
And it's really challenging because we have to house 3,000 pairs of shoes, which is so different than jewelry. Like jewelry is like a little,
tiny little
you could
box,
put like 1,000 pieces in like a box in the corner and you're fine. Whereas with shoes, like we're living in the shoes for like.
But you do it all out of your space?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it's like creating the labels, finding the packaging.
Yeah,
like
different sized box, right?
Everything.
Yeah.
So we're able to handle it with that kind of rush, but I would really be worried if that was consistent and anything more than that.
But the clothing is around the same bulkness, right?
Yeah.
What kind of clothing are you doing?
We're doing like simple like cut and sew, like hoodies and sweats and tees, and we'll do like the occasional dress or things like that.
That's all being housed out of your store office too?
Yeah.
Do you have a warehouse?
We do. We have a storage, not even a warehouse. It's like a storage unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's an honest rating, I think. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You mentioned you had 15 people. Can you break down like their roles?
Yeah, 5 of them work in the front of the house and they're shop girls. And then I have an office manager, a production coordinator, a newly, like in the last 6 months, a business advisor who's kind of like positioned to be a CEO potentially. I have 3 people that work on jewelry production in-house. And then I have 2 people that do content, like create like our weekly mailers, take photographs, run the Instagram, and then customer service.
I don't think you mentioned assistant designers.
No.
All you, all
everything.
OCD.
Yeah.
You still design every jewelry piece, every apparel, every shoe.
Everything, including packaging. I do everything. But that's why I need an investor.
That's. I have to admit, as an outsider, I have to say that's almost insanity.
Well, again, it was another one of those things that I didn't know. Like, I didn't know that was...
No, that was insane?
No.
Do you not?
I just thought
like
that's
trust
what everybody
issue?
did.
Like, do you have issues where like you don't trust someone with your brand because it has your name on it?
It's a combination of that, but it's also like I didn't know that I could be Melody Asani and everything in the store wouldn't be Melody Asani. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you were to tell me, like I thought like Marc Jacobs does everything.
Like draws every single thing.
I thought every single thing is his. Like I didn't know that there's a team of designers that do that for him.
But now you understand.
Now I understand. Yeah.
So you're looking for the growth.
Yeah. So now it's just about finding somebody that like gets it. because I haven't met anybody that does.
Yeah. But it took the 10 years now so that when you do find that magical design director, creative director, they have the blueprint. Whereas if you did it too early, it'd be their blueprint.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. I think that really blows people away that like you're crafting this thing for 10 years just sort of off intuition.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a trip. You know, it kind of pisses me off that I didn't, like, I'm angry at myself that I didn't learn quicker or investigate more earlier because, yeah, I just feel like now I'm behind in a way.
Yeah, but something is sacrificed when you structure too early, too.
Totally.
Like, I think brand DNA, essence, spirit, these things are sort of squashed in a Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Inevitably, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, but that's happening now, you know.
The Excel spreadsheets are coming out. Yeah. So what are you doing now to strategically be a more structured business? Give us some examples of that.
Well, I need investment, which is something super foreign to me because I've always, you know, I literally started with nothing and built this whole thing by myself. And so it's really interesting trying to pitch that to people, you know, because it's like, I'm not a fucking like a hot dog stand. Like, it's not like I'm buying hot dogs and putting my logo on them. Like, I'm literally I've created every single thing from like the furniture in my store to the fixtures to the packaging to everything, you know? And so it's kind of interesting trying to explain that to people who have money.
Yeah.
And yeah, I need support. Like, I need senior level staffing, and I need to grow tech. Like, up until a year ago, I didn't even have Google Analytics on my website, which is crazy. You know, I've never spent $1 on marketing. You know, I met with one person and they're like, your PR person sucks. And I'm like, I don't have one.
That could explain why it sucks.
Yeah, I was like, I've never had one. So it's just really interesting, like when somebody looks at your business from that standpoint and sort of picks it apart in that way, where I'm like, yeah, but I built this. Like,
yeah. Well, it's almost a double-edged sword that you're at a point now where you're ready to share what you've created with another person that hopefully you can trust a lot, right?
Yeah.
How does it feel for you now that, you know, if you look back on the days of you getting 1,000 shoes from China that you lived there and brought over and are selling out of your apartment to now employing 15 people that sort of are reliant on you to pay rent, eat food. You're obviously sustaining yourself too. Yeah. You have like this whole brand organization. Like, when you think back to those days, like, how does it make you feel now?
It's kind of surreal. It's weird because it's not what I think I just didn't think about it, like I said, because I was so excited about just making stuff that I didn't anticipate being in this position. And sometimes I still fight it. Like, I'm like, I don't want to be responsible for all these people. You know, like, I really have days like that, or where I'm like, I wonder if I could just go somewhere and get a paycheck. But I mean, obviously, no, like, I've chosen this and I really love it and enjoy it. And it's when I have those moments where I could sit back and look at it, it really feels like a blessing. Like, I don't think I would do anything else. I still haven't slowed down to the point where I can, like, sit back and really think about it that way. I still have so much more that I want to do, and I still don't feel like I've gotten anywhere close to where I want to get to. So it's weird I don't think about it that way yet. Yeah.
You're 10 years in on day one, basically.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Do you have anything else you feel like you want to add to this?
No, I think you asked me everything.
I got it all.
Are you bored?
No, I'm not. I'm fascinated by this stuff. That's why I wanted to do this show.
Thanks for listening to the episode. You can find out more about the show or listen to past episodes at hypebeast.com/radio. Subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. I use Overcast. And you can reach out to me on Twitter @Jeff Staple. You can check us out on the web at businessofhype.com, and you can email any questions to questions@businessofhype.com. The Business of Hype is directed by Daniel Novetta, edited and produced by Bright Young Things. You can check them out at byt.nyc. This was recorded at Sibling Rivalry Studio in New York City and on location at Seoul DXB in Dubai. I'm Jeff Staple, and you've been listening to The Business of Hype on Hypebeast Radio.